Hey guys, today we're going to be checking out the Hot Toys Suicide Squad Deadshot 6 scale figure. We're also going to be having a look at the special edition that's going to come with a couple of other accessories as well. So here's your 411 on Deadshot, whose real name is Floyd Lawton. He first debuted in Batman number 59 back in June-July 1950. Mind you, his portrayal here, played by Will Smith, can be traced a little bit closer to something you guys probably would remember, as he debuted in the Suicide Squad, which was released in theaters in 2016. We'll go ahead and grab the tape measure and get some dimensions going for Deadshot. He actually stands a little over 12 inches, 12 and a half inches to be exact. The display stand that he comes included with has the same things that we've seen with the Jokers and what we will have a look at when we have a look at eventually Harley Quinn. But it does have the Suicide Squad on the one side with the skull inside the Q. I really like that font. And then you got the bullseye on the far right side. In this case, you won't have Joker on the front, you have Deadshot, and what may look like it would be a similar stand. The top port, the top section of the stand itself, has something a little bit more closer to kind of like stones or cobblestones sort of flooring here. It is a little bit different than the Jokers that we've already had a look at, and of course it will be different than, I think Harley Quinn's will be a little bit different as well. Does still have the same adjustable crotch clip that you can put, of course, Deadshot over top of that. He does also, sadly, I say sadly, come with the same style of treatment of display backdrops that the Jokers came with. Let's reach off camera and grab that. Deadshot comes with this, which in essence looks good. It's actually the same kind of mentality that I had when I had a look at the two Jokers. I like the look of these. I don't like the execution of how you put these together. What we have here, and I'll just move this stand out of the way for a second. What we have here is Deadshot's masked face, two pistols, a bullseye scope, as well as a skull down below. It does look good. In fact, when you take the figure and you put him on his stand and you put him in front of said backdrop, it does actually look good. It looks nice and polished, especially if you have the accommodated needs or means to put them all on, like, say, a shelf, where you can kind of have all the Suicide Squad members side by side, each with their own corresponding backdrop, would look nice. My problem, though, and the same problem I had with the two Jokers, is the poor execution. Just get Deadshot to stand here. Is the poor execution for how these stands come together. Essentially, it's all cardboard. And I get, obviously, they're not going to go all out and give us plastic or anything like that. But you've got one long piece of cardboard, and then you've got the little side struts of cardboard, which basically only rely on these tab points on either side, which are also cardboard, I might add, to kind of keep everything together. These get frayed right away. I mean, in fact, they bend the moment you attach these to the sides, that they just don't sit well. They sit loose, and a lot of times I find these just outright fall off. I don't know what other accommodations they could have done possibly to it, because of course their money is to be making the collectible, the 6 scale figure. This is just an afterthought. This is basically just like the icing on hopefully an already delicious cake. I kind of wish though that they would have done something different to how at least these could be attached onto. I'm not really sure how they would go about doing it, but it definitely, it's weak. It's weak sauce altogether. I probably won't end up displaying Deadshot with this backdrop, just because the nature of, I display everything as you probably have seen in detolfs, so really there's no space. There's barely space really to fit several of these figures together with the sized display stand that they come included with. I certainly do not have space for these backdrops. Maybe if I eventually would put them on a shelf, that would be a different story altogether. But as it stands currently, I just don't have the space for these. So these kind of things get omitted from my displays. Deadshot's costume will consist of a red colored combat shirt and a pair of black pants. The pants themselves do have pockets, but none of which are accessible. They're just tailored and stitched material, so you can't really get into those. The top actually is quite nice, and before we spend some time talking about the vest, because I think that's kind of the main attraction to his costume, I really don't want to diminish or take anything really away from the top itself, which has some nice actual pattern to it, giving it almost like a microfiber look. The interior, or some of the areas, are kind of a rusted brown, while the red makes up the majority of the color, and you can see that there's kind of like a cross stitching sort of pattern going on there. If we move the arm just slightly outward, you can see some additional padding there of the combat top, and it actually does have padding to it. These little pillow areas here are additional stitched cushions added to the combat top, which is really actually a nice touch. Deadshot gets himself, though, a bulletproof vest that wraps itself from the front all the way to the back, a little bit more narrower on the back here. Paint is very simple here. It doesn't really have a lot of extra colors, but it does have some nice textured work on the vest itself. And you can see there's like little rivets running all around each of the plates. There's a little bullseye going on there as well. He gets a little bit of that armor also running on the shoulder portion of his vest, which actually just looks like it's strapped all the way around. The vest, as well as the little shoulder pieces, I want to entertain the idea of taking them off. In fact, the instructions even indicate do not attempt to try to remove the costume in any way. Some of his firepower starts showing up here on his arms, which again he has I am the light, the way. And it looks like he's just got like a pair of machine gun gauntlets running on the sides, which really looks neat. Also, too, if you reach to the side and you get your finger in there, he does have removable magazines. They're small, but you can see that they've even painted in a gold bullet, which is a really nice touch, and those just fit back into place. Probably one thing you can also see, too, is a series of magazine pockets or little magazine holders running all around the figure. He doesn't actually come with all the magazines to fill these. In fact, he only comes with basically half that quantity, but you can mix and match them, having some in some areas, some in others, where it looks like he would have been using them in battle. On the side of his pants, he's got one holster allocated to the pistol we will be looking at, as well as on the back, he's got a section. I might also mention it does sit a little on the loose side. There's not really a lot holding this in place. I wish there was actually a little snap or something here where it could hold these a little bit better. But there are holstered areas on either side where his smaller pistols will fit in place. Moving down the figure's leg, he's got a couple of larger magazine clip holders. It doesn't have it on this side, of course, that's the holster for the gun, but he's got it on the one side. And then moving further down, he's got slightly worn away red knee pads, which have their straps wrapped around the leg areas. And then further down, he has his boots, as well as on the one side, a holster for a supplied knife. The boots that he's sculpted with are adequate, but I can't help but look at them and feel like they do read very sculpted, and they don't really so much look realistic. I guess it's because the laces and the coloring of the shoes are just one consistent color. Sure, you get a little bit of kind of mud splattered on the tips of the feet, but like the laces and the boots themselves don't really look like they're actual real shoes. I don't know how they would have gone around fixed that, maybe put some extra paint around the laces, but it definitely doesn't look like real shoes. All this time talking about his costume, we failed to talk about his actual head sculpt. And I think the head sculpt is dead on. It's an uncanny likeness to Will Smith. And I'm sure, no doubt, Will Smith has this figure in his collection because he probably doesn't have a lot of Will Smith figures. I doubt there was ever a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air 6-scale figure. It'd be funny if there was such a thing that existed. But the head sculpt definitely does look very much like Will Smith, a bald Will Smith from Suicide Squad, or really just Will Smith in general. While the paint is good, and I think obviously the sculpt is there, I feel as if like the paint makes the figure's face look a little slightly faded. It's hard to kind of compare it to, but if we had photos, if you could actually just kind of pull up photos of what this figure looked like online, he seemed to have much dark, richer colors making up the profile of his face, as well as the beard. It's a very small little nitpick, but I do find like the face, especially like the beard, seems like it's slightly on a more faded color scheme. Maybe a little bit more pop of color, I think, or just kind of more darker, richer colors, I think, could have brought the face a little bit better out. It's still a good face sculpt, don't get me wrong, but there's something slightly faded, I think, about the paint. One thing, though, I do like is that they've given just tons of paint, even though it is slightly faded to my liking, especially like on the bald head. You can even see not quite the indication of hairs growing back in, but it does seem slightly discolored, as if the hair could theoretically be growing back in. You see a little bit of a vein sculpted in onto the side. Again, the beard looks great, as well as the eyes themselves. I would almost say that the face, he almost has like a blank stare. And I can't quite place what they could have done differently for the face sculpt not to have that kind of blank, lifeless stare to it. I mean, some could also just say that that's Will Smith. That's just the way he looks. But it does. It seems like it's almost got like a blank stare to his face. Now, one of the other options you can go with displaying Deadshot is his interchangeable head that has the mask head. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this mask. I didn't like it in the movie. It kind of reminds me of a volleyball, just the way the texturing of it is. It's got little breathing holes there so Will Smith can breathe. Of course, he's got the little scope on the side, and you can make out at least one, not two, but at least one of Will's eyes inside. The mask, taking nothing away from the sculpt and the paint, looks good. I just don't like the design of the mask specifically. But it is one fantastic looking head sculpt. Now, to show you what the head looks like on Will Smith's or Deadshot's body, we'll go ahead and pop off the unmasked head, which pops just out of place like so. Then we can go ahead and replace the Deadshot mask. Pop that into the ball socket, and there you go. Because he doesn't technically wear this mask that long into the movie, I'd be more inclined to probably display him with the unhelmeted or unmasked head as an alternative. I do like the fact, and I always do appreciate the fact, that Hot Toys gives you alternatives, so you can go either or if you so wish. But just because, well, Deadshot is unmasked for most, if not all, the movie, I'd be more inclined to probably display him with this head sculpt rather than this one here. One thing that the unmasked head sculpt does have, option-wise at least, is he does also have the little targeting scope that he wears periodically throughout the movie. It is a little bit of a softer plastic, incorporating some nice reds in there in the band. On the one piece, you've got an earpiece that can go into his ear, and the other side is the scope itself. Fits very easily into his head. We'll just fit that on top like so. And I've noticed myself that the earpiece really doesn't fit into his ear. In fact, pulling it does have a little bit of stress, and by the nature of the way that the curl is on the ear, or on the section that would go into his ear, I'm thinking more so it's going to be sitting above the ear rather than inside, just to kind of give not as much stress to the band. It looks good on him, and I probably, if anything, I'm obviously going to go using this head sculpt. I'd be probably inclined, though, to display it with the scope as well. Deadshot, as you could probably imagine, being that he's a paid hitman, would have a ton of different accessories. And this is only really a few of them that so far on display, but we're going to look at a lot more in a second. But before we do that, let's have a look at the exclusive items that come with this, being that this is the exclusive version of Deadshot. One of which he does come with the Bat Breather, the breathing apparatus for Ben Affleck's Batman, which he uses at the beginning of the movie when he splashes into the water to rescue a crashed Harley Quinn and Joker. Now, there is also going to be a Suicide Squad Batman that's going to be released. As far as I know, it's still coming out, and I hope it does because I didn't get a chance to get the Batman v Superman. I think it already comes with a head sculpt or the options to give he already has the breathing apparatus. So I think this is a little bit more catered to the Batman v Superman Batman instead. While we're also talking about Batman, there's also a pair of handcuffs that come included with this as well. And the handcuffs do detach, they do open, but they are very thin plastic, so be very careful with those. But those are your two exclusives. It's also to know as well, there's a little bat logo in the middle, which I just noticed now. But these are your two exclusives if you wanted to pick up the exclusive version of Deadshot rather than the regular release. Deadshot's largest accessories, he comes with this machine gun, which has some nice coloring and paint applied to it. Even actually has the "I am the light, the way" written on the side there as well. He's basically just put that on everything. But it's a nice paint between the gold, the blacks, a little bit of silver there as well. And it does have a removable magazine clip. Just simply pops that right out. They painted the last barrel, or the last bullet, in a nice gold color, which is something that they always do with the removable clips. And then he also has a total of 3 extra magazine clips that can go onto his costume. In fact, if you spin around the figure to the sections that we looked at earlier, those 3 extra magazine clips just sit very easily into place. You just take all 3 of them, and those just slide into place. They're kind of a little friction applied, so like when you get them to the top and you push them down, you get a little bit of that snap, and you know the cartridges and magazines are in place here. He also gets himself a smaller pistol, which actually has the same deco as the machine gun. A nice combination of golds. You got that kind of cranberry red, which has a bit of a dry wash to it, almost like a black dry wash. Of course, your handle, and you got a little bit of gold down below as well. The magazine clip on this is also removable, although it's a little bit more difficult, especially if you don't have nails, to get access to it. But it does pull out, and you've got your bullet painted on the end there as well. And if you want to store this pistol, it would just fit into the side holster of his leg. And that pistol that we just looked at comes with 4 extra magazine clips. Now, in the beginning of the review, I think I mentioned that there was too many pockets than there were magazine clips. That's not technically true, because the pistols that we're going to be looking at in a second that go into the back technically will then fill out the remaining empty slots. So you can just go ahead and fit those magazine clips into the front. And it's quite an impressive display once you've got all the magazine clips, all the weapons attached to Deadshot here. But those just fit into place like that. Rounding out the last of his firepower, he also comes with a pair of twin pistols. Both of them have removable magazines, which actually I find these magazines not fall out, but they seem to come out a lot easier. Sometimes not the easiest to put back in if you don't fit them in properly. But he does come with 2 of these that you can obviously fit into his hands, or what you can also do too is spin the figure around, and he's got these little gun holsters on the back, which I kind of dig because they're shaped the same way as the gun. I don't know why I find entertainment out of that, but those pistols just sit right into place and sit actually fairly securely. I mean, they don't come out or anything like that. And like with the other pistol, it comes with extra magazine clips as well, so you can fit those just onto the sides, on either side of those housed pistols. 2 on this side, and then 2 on the other side. He also gets himself a small dagger, which doesn't really have a whole lot of paint going on. It looks like primarily it's a cast black plastic dagger, and then they've just kind of dry washed a little bit of kind of silver onto the blade portion. And you can go ahead and grab the figure, and it just slides. A little holster here on the side of his leg, and the dagger sits very easily into place. Now, talking about storage, there is technically a spot where you could house the machine gun here. If you spin the figure around, there's this kind of little loop clip here. The instructions really don't indicate how the machine gun sits into that. Judging by the size of it, one of the things I was thinking would be the case would be the magazine sits, if I fit it through, it sits almost perfectly. It just takes a little bit of sliding it through there, mind you. but the machine gun seems to sit perfectly fine in it. So it's a little loose, a little lopsided, granted, but that seems to be the closest proximity to how I would think the machine gun actually sits in there. You know, you could technically have it. Let me just remove this here for a second. I was also thinking it might have gone this way as well, but the barrel is too broad on the machine gun to fit itself all the way through. That's why I was thinking through the magazine was probably the best way to store it. I don't want to leave this out because anybody that would have picked up a Deadshot will right away say, well, where's the clip? He does technically come with a clip that if you spin the figure once again around to the back here, there's like a little looplet right at the top that this clip attaches, and theoretically does attach to the strap that is on the machine gun. But I want to just say this though, this is plastic. This only has so much wiggle room to it. I haven't really tried putting it on there because I just had a bad feeling that that was going to break. Some collectors could certainly put that on there. I'm opting instead to leave it off. Lastly, he gets himself a stop sign, which seems like it's actual metal. The instructions indicate that it does have some rather sharp edges, and I cannot confirm nor deny that because I'm obviously not going to be running my finger along the edges of it. But I can confirm it does feel like it is actual metal, and you've got like a tire tread running across the top there. It's a little on the dingier side, but its intent is to actually sit just on the display stand it comes included with. Also comes with some extra peg swap outs, so if any of the pegs break, you've got some extras to go by. And surprisingly enough, he also comes with some, I can't tell you, I think they're rivets. I think they're going to be for specifically like the knees and stuff like that. Any areas that come off, they give you some extras to go by. And then of course he comes with some interchangeable hands. I've currently got in the socket some relaxed palms, but he also comes with a pair of closed fists. As you would probably expect, he comes with a pair of trigger fingers for holding the guns. And he's also got just a regular gripping gun, or gripping handle hand for you can hold the other end of the machine gun. When it comes to Deadshot's posability, well, his head does rotate, and the rotation actually sits at the base of the neck, as the head and the neck are all one sculpted piece. So you don't actually have the actual benefit of having two ball joints, where usually sometimes the head is attached to the neck and the neck is attached to the torso. In this instance, you only have one ball joint to go by. But it looks like it's actually a double end ball joint, where one ball joint goes into the neck, one ball joint sits in the torso, so you get some extra motion and movement there. Arms hinge outward as well as forward and back. Doesn't really sit all that tight. I do, of course, sense a little bit of resistance when I move the arms too forward, and too far back. It does also have a swivel in the bicep, a double hinge on the elbow, as well as a rotation and hinge in the hands. His torso is a little bit more of a different story altogether. He does have the crunch, but coupled with the fact that he's got a plastic vest basically over top of it, and for the fact that he's got the extra padding and a somewhat tight top to start off with, doesn't really give you a much afforded wiggle room when it comes to moving the torso up and down. Most, if not all, the actual adjustments I feel are coming from the base that attaches to the waist here. Of course, as well, you've got that little swivel area, but when swiveling it, make sure you don't clip any one of these in the process. You don't want to snap the belt. For his legs hinge outward as well as forward and back, but that's about really all you're going to get because the pants are a little tight up the top area there. It does have a double hinge in the knee, a rotation in the foot, up and down, and an ankle pivot, all relying on the ball joint that's attaching the foot to the calf. The Hot Toys Suicide Squad Deadshot 6-scale figure is one fantastic looking specimen. It does have one incredible likeness to Will Smith, and though I feel like the paint could have been maybe a little richer on the application, still no denying that that's the head sculpt of Will Smith. He of course has all the necessary accessories one would want with a Deadshot, tons of firepower, the magazines as well included. He really has everything that you could want, and I don't really think there's anything that they would have left out or have left out with this release of this Marksman. Truly an exceptional piece, one of which I'm looking forward to putting next to the two Jokers, and eventually next to the Harley Quinn, when we eventually have a look at her on this channel as well. The only thing I can only hope is that we may get more of the Suicide Squad members. I kind of feel this gut feeling inside of me telling me that it's only really going to be the two Jokers, a couple of variations of Harley Quinn, and Deadshot as being the core members of the Suicide Squad. So for that reason, I feel slightly like I'm filling out a team that really is not going to amount to the complete group. Hopefully Hot Toys will still want to continue to entertain the idea of releasing other Suicide Squad members, because if you're going to get a Joker, you're going to get a Harley Quinn, which is a given, and obviously a Deadshot. I'd hope to think that we're going to get the other members as well. Nonetheless, though, today we were having a look at the Deadshot from Hot Toys, and this was also the special edition that came with the Bat Breather as well as the handcuffs. If you guys like this video, certainly hit it with a like down below. If you guys haven't had a chance also to subscribe yet to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that little subscribe button down below. Don't be a Jimmy JJ that says, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Do it today. If you guys are also fans of Hot Toy reviews, I've got a whole playlist on this channel that you can go back and check out those older videos and watch at your viewing pleasure. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.